Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Tahir Kamal. I am working as assistant professor in dermatology department, Lahore General Hospital. Today I am going to discuss very important topic in dermatology, which is psoriasis. And psoriasis is basically a chronic relapsing inflammatory skin disorder with a strong genetic penetrance. So, psoriasis is basically an inflammatory and hyperplastic disease of the skin where there is hyperproliferation and due to influence of the certain cytokines which are T cell mediated, the basal cell it proliferates at a very high rate. So as we know that if they multiply at a higher rate, the stratum corneum would not shed at the proper time, and the new cells come up and reach stratum corneum. That's why you see lot of scales which are characteristic lesion of psoriasis over the erythematous plaques, and it is clinically it is characterized by erythema, redness and elevated scaly plaques. The course of the disease is chronic and it's a relapsing condition. So basically with the newer treatment we can control it, but most of the time it recurs and it's a relapsing condition. So course is basically unpredictable in psoriasis, and it is presented in different morphological forms and different severities. It's a common skin disorder, but its prevalence is more or less same all over the world, which is around 0.3 to 2.5%, and it is present equally in both males and females. So there is no predominance of any one gender, and estimated incidence of the disease is around 60 cases per 1 lakh in a year. Now it is very important to know that basically there are two major peaks where the disease mostly present in any patient. Early onset of the disease is around 16 to 22 years of age, and in early onset it is more severe, and it is extensively involving larger area of the body, and mostly you can trace the family inheritance, and first degree family member it is also affected. But in the second peak, which is late onset, it is around 57 to 60 years of age in the 5th decade, but it is mostly localized or milder form, and inheritance is usually absent in the first degree. So this is an important factor to remember. Now it is important in psoriasis to remember that there are certain conditions and there are certain factors which can aggravate psoriasis. Most important is infection. So usually especially in children, usually in after infections which can be streptococcal infections, especially sore throat, viral infections, psoriasis can aggravate in next 2 to 3 weeks time. So in history also you should ask patient with whether he or she might have some infection before aggravation of psoriatic lesions. Then comes skin trauma, which can be in the form of scratching, which can be either trauma. So this phenomena is called Koebner phenomena, which is also present in few other dermatological diseases, and we should also counsel patient that he or she must not scratch the lesion, because even new psoriatic plaques or lesions can occur on normal skin also. Then comes the stress factor, which is in the form of anxiety or depression. Psoriasis itself can cause stress and can aggravate again psoriasis, so it's a sort of a vicious cycle, but one of the aggravating factor is stress. Then comes certain drugs, medicines, amongst which lithium, beta blockers, withdrawal of oral corticosteroids. These are very important medicines which can aggravate psoriasis and important to remember. Then comes the sunburn, which is also a type of trauma, but if we treat it with ultraviolet, that can be a therapeutic option for psoriasis. Calcium deficiency can cause or can aggravate psoriasis, so during investigation we must look for calcium levels in the blood. And last but not least, these hormonal factors, especially in pregnancy, can also aggravate psoriasis. So as I said, psoriasis is fundamentally an inflammatory skin condition with reactive abnormal epidermal differentiation and hyperproliferation. Research clearly suggests now that inflammatory mechanisms are immune based, and it is most likely initiated and maintained primarily by T cells in the dermis. So antigen presenting cells in the skin, such as Langerhans cells, they are believed to migrate from skin to regional lymph nodes where they interact with T cells, and presentation of such unidentified antigen to the T cells, as well as number of other signals, co-stimulatory signals, they can trigger an immune response leading to T cell activation and release of cytokines, which I earlier said that these cytokines then further cause hyperproliferation of basal cells. So I think I've tried to summarize the pathogenesis of psoriasis in easy terms, and hopefully you will remember this. Now there are different clinical presentation of classical psoriasis, as you can appreciate in the picture which I am showing in the slide. These are typical lesion of psoriasis. These are well defined and sharply demarcated round or oval shaped lesions, and most importantly, these lesions are symmetrical. So typical psoriasis is it is presented on both sides of the body, because psoriatic lesions can mimic other dermatological conditions. So you must keep this factor in mind in clinical examination, that it is present in or present the typical psoriasis present in a symmetrical manner. Lesions are erythematous, raised, and it is covered by white silvery scales. So this is the characteristic lesion which is to be remembered in psoriasis. In psoriasis, because presently I am talking about the typical psoriasis, so these red areas or which are shown in the diagram, these are the typical sites which are definitely I would expect you to examine if you are considering psoriasis in your diagnosis. It can affect any part, but these are the typical sites. So you can appreciate scalp, elbow, knees, and sacral area. So basically they are involving the extensor aspects of the body, different lesions, but most importantly scalp, elbows, and knees, they must be looked for. If these three areas are involved with typical erythematous plaques, and covered with silvery scales. So diagnosis of psoriasis vulgaris or common or typical psoriasis can be easily made. Now in this slide you can appreciate the typical psoriatic lesions, and chronic plaque psoriasis is the most commonest type of psoriasis, which is affecting 85% of psoriatic patients. So you can appreciate, rest of the skin around the lesion seems to be, it is normal, but you can see a thick plaque which is symmetrically distributed over front of the legs, especially the knee area, which we earlier mentioned is a common area to be examined, and it involves knees, elbows. So these lesions may be multiple, may be single, and can involve larger areas, and classically it affects elbows, buttocks and scalp. So this is the characteristic lesion of chronic plaque psoriasis. Here you can see the chronic plaque psoriasis involving the elbow with typical lesions. Now in this slide you can see the other type of psoriasis which we earlier mentioned in the classification. This is called guttate psoriasis. If I explain it easily, these are sort of raindrop like lesions. You can see centrally there is erythematous lesion which is not a typical plaque, but you can see scale around it, and it is multiple. It is usually widely distributed, especially on the back of the patient suffering from guttate psoriasis. And important characteristic of this type of psoriasis is that it usually occurs after infection, especially sore throat, and obviously this guttate type of psoriasis comes in children, or patients are usually under 30 years of age. So it is often preceded by upper respiratory tract infection, especially streptococcal sore throat. So this is something which you should keep in mind. Now you can see the lesions are involving the underarm area, which is a flexural area. This type of psoriasis is called flexural psoriasis, but practically most of the doctors or health care providers, they are confused with fungal infection in this area, or it may be candidal intertrigo. So these lesions can confuse most of the time, but typically, as you appreciate, surrounding skin is normal, and it is more of a smooth involvement in a sort of plaque with very few scaling as compared to typical chronic plaque psoriasis. So this is another type of psoriasis which I have shown. This is called flexural psoriasis, which involves flexural area, groin area and underarms most of the time for very long period of time. Here we are seeing in the photograph, which is called erythrodermic psoriasis. As you can appreciate, there are no well-defined plaques in this type, and by definition, as we said, it's a generalized erythema covering almost entire skin surface. But one thing which we should keep in mind, that patient gives history of previously long-term history of having plaque type psoriasis or localized psoriasis, and then because of some aggravating factors, it involves whole of the body with erythema and scaling, and patient come in the form of dermatological emergency, having hypo or hyperthermia, patient is dehydrated, and the complications of this type of psoriasis should be kept in mind, like high output cardiac failure, We have to take care of superficial infections which can further aggravate erythroderma, malabsorption, electrolyte imbalance, and obviously anemia, hypoproteinemia. So all these complications must be kept in mind in this type of psoriasis. Another type which is involving most of the areas of skin, just like erythrodermic psoriasis, but here we can see the pustular form and tiny pustules. They coalesce or they group together to form larger plaques. Patient is considered unstable, and patients are presented with deep-seated lesions, and small pustules may be localized to palms and sole. And then the other type of pustular psoriasis, which has got more complications, is the generalized form associated with fever, metabolic complications, high output failure, high output cardiac failure, infections, and there are chances that patient might go into even sometime renal failure. So these complications and this type of psoriasis must be adequately managed by a dermatologist or properly referred to a dermatologist. This is a localized type of psoriasis, as we earlier mentioned in the classification. This is called palmoplantar psoriasis. For very long period of time, this type of psoriasis is confined to palms, and patient presents with thickened hands, which is sometimes confused with chronic eczema also. But practically, dermatologist or the doctor examining the patient must look for fissuring in this type of psoriasis, because it's very dry, hyperkeratotic, thick plaque involving both hands symmetrically, and patient complains of lot of pain, because you can easily appreciate there is lot of fissuring because of this hyperkeratosis and dryness. Another localized type of psoriasis, which is called scalp psoriasis. As with the hands, many patients, they just suffer from dryness or scaling in the scalp, but if you examine closely, it's not a diffuse scaling. You will also appreciate redness or plaques over the scalp skin, and this is called scalp psoriasis. As compared to common dandruff or seborrheic eczema, the scales are very thick, silvery, which is characteristic of psoriasis, so that helps in the diagnosis of this variety of psoriasis. Now sometimes psoriasis can involve nails only, or in most of the generalized variety of psoriasis or with psoriatic arthritis, nails can be an important diagnostic tool, because psoriasis affects nail growth. So there are different changes which you can appreciate, or you should examine the nails for confirming your diagnosis, or which help in the diagnosis of psoriasis. So nails changes which are common in psoriasis, number one is the pitting, which you see small pits in the nail plate, and these are circumscribed or roundish depressions. Then there is thickening under the nail, which is called subungual hyperkeratosis, because of hyperproliferation of basal cells. So this is called subungual hyperkeratosis. And onycholysis, which is separation of nail plate from the nail bed. So that is also one of the changes of psoriatic nails. And finally, this oil drop sign, which is pink or red color change on the nail surface, usually found in the middle of the nail. So these are all changes which you can see in the nail because of psoriasis, because the matrix cells, the cells, they are also affected under the influence of cytokines. This is a slide of changes in the psoriatic nail. You can very clearly appreciate pits and onycholysis, which is separation of nail plate from nail bed. Psoriasis can also involve joints, and which is one of the difficult type of psoriasis to treat. It has got very significant morbidity. But if we just summarize it, there are 5 major patterns of psoriatic arthritis. It involves distal interphalangeal joints as compared to rheumatoid arthritis, where proximal interphalangeal joints are involved. It is the second type is symmetrical polyarthritis, where multiple joints are involved. Then there is a pattern which is called or type of psoriatic arthritis which is called psoriatic spondyloarthropathy, and usually it involves the lumbar spine area, and patients are usually associated with HLA-B27, so they have more tendency to involve the lumbar spine. Patient usually complain of lot of back pain. Then becomes arthritis mutilans, where there is resorption of finger, becomes sausage shape. Patient can present with dactylitis, inflammation, and last of the type is oligoarticular asymmetrical arthritis. So these are different types of presentations or different types of psoriatic arthritis, and it affects about 5 to 20% of psoriatic patients. Now, after discussing the different types of psoriasis, its pathogenesis, and different complications of psoriasis, we come on to the very important part, and obviously that is the management of psoriasis. Now, you all should keep in mind, before we treat psoriasis, there are certain factors which you should keep in mind. First thing, you should be able to obviously diagnose psoriasis, and then you have to figure out what is the extent of psoriasis. Is it localized or generalized? What is the pattern? What is the severity? How long the patient is suffering from psoriasis? And most importantly, is he or she has developed any complication because of psoriasis? Any other coexistent medical conditions like diabetes or any heart conditions, cardiovascular problems, that should be taken into account. And the patient profession, patient commitment, psychological factors, and previous treatment of psoriasis. These all factors should be kept in mind, so please do keep these factors in mind before starting or deciding the treatment plan. Our objective of treatment or the goals of treatment should be basically to improve quality of life, because patient is under a lot of psychological stress. Then we should clear the facts about psoriasis to the patient, like the disease is not contagious, it is not very harmful, not having systemic effects, especially in localized variety or chronic plaque psoriasis type. We try to achieve long-term remission and disease control, and try to prevent long-term complications because of psoriasis. These are the basic goals or objective of psoriatic treatment. Before starting treatment, the basic approach is to reduce the triggering factor, which we had already discussed in the initial part of the lecture. So again, this is just a revision. We should ask or reduce the stress factor. Smoking, which aggravates psoriasis, should be discouraged, as well as alcohol intake, any kind of scratching or trauma, any medication which aggravates psoriasis like beta blockers, lithium, etc. These medications should be avoided. And last but not least, patient should be counseled and should be explained that infections can trigger psoriasis. They should be treated promptly or at the right time. So it should be considered a very significant factor before commencing for any treatment option in psoriasis. For localized variety of psoriasis, please remember we should not opt for systemic therapies as a first option. Topical therapies or topical treatment should be the first option, because 70% patients approximately, they suffer from mild to moderate psoriasis or localized psoriasis like scalp psoriasis, palms and soles psoriasis, palmoplantar psoriasis. So topical applications or topical therapy should be considered as the first line of treatment in these cases. Amongst the topical therapies, to begin with, coal tar is now not frequently used as a topical therapy, but in 90s it was a popular topical therapy. It still has a lot of role to reduce inflammation and itching and pruritus in psoriasis, and can bring long-term remissions. Especially tar is now usually being used by pharmaceuticals in shampoo form. So for scalp psoriasis it can be a good option. Otherwise it is also being used for localized palmoplantar psoriasis if it is properly given with proper vehicle which can penetrate thick skin. So coal tar has its own distinctive rule, except it has got some milder side effects like irritation, or it can cause staining, which is sometimes disliked by patient. Otherwise it is a good option. So in the form of Liquor Piscis carbonicus, which is called LPC, it is added as a dispensing item and can be used in the topical therapy for psoriasis. Now we should remember that among the costlier creams and ointments which are currently being used in treatment of psoriasis, we should remember that simple emollients and moisturizing lotions and creams, they definitely help in the treatment of psoriasis, using them topically. So it has its own role because it has got lot of benefits. It removes the element of pruritus, it reduces the scales, and it encourages the penetration of concomitant topical therapies like topical steroid creams, etc. It hydrates skin. Especially it is very useful in localized palmoplantar psoriasis, where we come across a lot of fissuring, so which is causing pain to the patient. So topical emollients have a lot of benefits. It is in the form of soft white paraffin or sargolene cream, aqueous creams, all of them include in the emollients. Then comes the role of topical steroids in the therapy of psoriasis. Obviously steroids have ruled for 2 or 3 decades, and they were mixed with emollients or they were applied as such. Topical steroids obviously have anti-inflammatory, anti-proliferative properties, and it reduces the inflammation. But there are certain factors which you should keep in mind. For larger area, steroid use in a topical form, it should be discouraged, or either topical steroid should be diluted with some emollient, because in larger areas if you apply steroids, obviously that is absorbed from the body, and especially when you are using more than 25 to 30 grams of topical steroids, so it affects hypothalamus pituitary axis, and it causes systemic side effects also, besides thinning skin topically, and topical side effects as we all are well aware of. So nowadays for localized psoriasis, steroids are still used, but other therapies have taken role of topical steroids in dermatology. Topical steroids, I've just briefly mentioned few of the side effects of long-term steroids. As I've mentioned, it causes skin atrophy, telangiectasia, hypopigmentation, especially stretch marks, striae, and precipitation of pustular psoriasis. Obviously, systemic steroid therapy is discouraged in the treatment of psoriasis, except in few conditions. And as I already mentioned, larger amount of topical steroids applied to the body for longer period of time, more than 1 week, can affect pituitary adrenal axis suppression through significant systemic absorption. Now comes important therapy, which is vitamin D analog. This is for calcipotriol, available now commonly in Pakistan also. And the basic concept of using this topical therapy is that vitamin D receptors are present on keratinocytes also. So once we give topical therapy in the form of vitamin D, it affects the keratinocyte proliferation, and it is usually used in localized or typical chronic plaque psoriasis type, and it changes by inducing differentiation of keratinocyte, which is obviously affected in psoriasis, and it suppresses the proliferation of keratinocytes. Now, as I was mentioning, role of vitamin D analogs, I haven't mentioned it here, but if you are interested, you can just note it down that topically pimecrolimus or tacrolimus ointments have been introduced for the last decade. So these are also, they come in the concentration of 0.1% or 0.03%. So long-term use of topical tacrolimus and pimecrolimus, they have shown good effects on plaque psoriasis, and if it is used topically with very minor and almost none of the side effects like topical steroids. So that is also a good option in the topical therapy. Coming on to other therapies, especially systemic therapies, we should remember basically phototherapy, ultraviolet A, ultraviolet B therapy. We have got artificial chambers for it, and patient is given treatment twice a week most of the time. It's got very beneficial effects. Then systemic therapies, and very importantly nowadays biological agents. Phototherapy includes for the psoriasis which is resistant to topical therapy, and it is covering more than 10% of surface body area, and patient is not pregnant or children. Especially when you are giving phototherapy, you should be protective about certain areas like genital areas. So these are few of the contraindications. Otherwise, we can consider any type of psoriasis or phototherapy which is involving larger area of the body, and patient is showing resistance to topical therapies or basic treatment. So phototherapy, as we all know, it has got immunomodulatory and anti-inflammatory effects, and basically they are divided or classified into narrowband UVB or UVA therapy or broadband UVB. Treatment is usually administered 2 to 3 times per week and for like 6 to even 12 weeks period for the proper response to be judged. Methotrexate has been a very important systemic therapy because of its cost effectiveness, and it has got very beneficial effect. It is easily available, so it has been quite frequently used in dermatology nowadays, especially in developing countries, because everyone cannot afford costlier biological treatments. So it is especially very effective in generalized type of psoriasis, extensive plaque psoriasis, which is resistant to topical therapies. It is most commonly used once weekly, and usual dose is around 10 to 20 milligram per week. Methotrexate, it slows epidermal cell proliferation, and obviously it acts as immunosuppressant. But we should keep in mind there is certain protocol. Every 2 to 4 weeks, patient must be examined for urine complete examination, serum creatinine, urea, to look for the involvement of kidney, renal involvement, LFTs, and CBC to see any sign of bone marrow suppression. So folic acid must be given with methotrexate. Other important therapy which is given systemically is cyclosporin. Cyclosporin basically acts on T cells, especially CD4 helper cells, and it has got immunosuppressive action. But there are certain protocols for giving cyclosporin because it has got important side effects, especially it causes increase in the blood pressure, and it has got side effects on renal functions. So renal function and blood pressure should be regularly monitored. It is given in the dose of 2 to 2.5 milligram per kg body weight daily, and maximally it can be given in the dose of 3 to 3.5 milligram per kg body weight. And cyclosporin should not be abruptly stopped, it should be tapered off. So it is an effective systemic therapy in patients showing resistance to methotrexate, or in patients who are suffering from pustular psoriasis or psoriatic arthritis. Other important systemic therapy which is included in the treatment of resistant or extensive psoriasis, these are oral retinoids, which are vitamin A derivatives, and amongst vitamin A derivatives, in case of psoriasis, acitretin is an important option, but we should also consider it in giving acitretin few of the side effects, especially it causes hyperlipidemia, but it is still a safe option in generalized form of psoriasis. but most importantly it is discouraged in females of childbearing age, because it causes teratogenicity in the fetus, and the safe period is almost more than 2 years before the female patient can consider next pregnancy. So it should be discouraged in female gender, but in male patients suffering from psoriasis, it can be a good option, and it is given approximately 25 to 100 milligram can be given daily, but it should be started with 25 milligram daily dosage, and according to response and according to the patient's response and compliance, and considering the side effects, it can be gradually increased up to 100 or 125 milligram daily, but side effects should be considered accordingly. So nowadays, one of the most recent advances and one of the most important systemic therapy, these are the biological agents. And basically biological agents, these are derived from living organisms, and these are pharmacologically active molecules which are derived from animal sources. These biological treatments are considered in chronic severe generalized type of psoriasis, or the type of psoriasis which are having complications, or they are especially showing resistance to other immunosuppressants or other immunomodulating drugs. So we should understand that these are basically classified into broadly. There are monoclonal antibodies, fusion proteins, or interleukin based biological agents, and they are classified according to their mode of action, against which specific molecule or against which specific target they are acting. So these are classified like tumor necrosis factor alpha inhibitors and interleukin based molecules, especially against interleukin 17, interleukin 23, which have vital role in the pathogenesis of psoriasis and causing psoriatic lesions. Then there are JAK inhibitors, monoclonal antibodies, and other some miscellaneous types. So these are all biological agents, and they coming into the last part of our talk now regarding management. So I have been talking now about biological agents, giving you some of the examples. Like I mentioned, few of the biological agents, they act against tumor necrosis factor alpha. So few examples are like etanercept, adalimumab, and similarly interleukin based treatments, especially secukinumab or stachinumab. These are acting against interleukins. They block these interleukins and bring their effects. So with this I conclude my talk, and I really thank you all for patiently listening to this important topic. I hope you have got brief idea about diagnosis, different types of psoriasis, and how to manage it, because in our usual clinical practice in all fields of medicine, we do come across these lesions, or at least we should be able to recognize this common problem, and can even properly refer or manage the initial presentation or the localized variety of this disease. Thank you very much. Thank you again.